Version 1, The Ninth Wonder of the World, 1997. Triple H is in the middle of a heated feud with Goldust. The crowd expects another standard night, the arrogant blue blood hunter against the bizarre golden one. But on this night, fans get something they've never seen before. As Marlena, Goldust's valet, cheers from ringside, the camera suddenly catches movement in the crowd. A figure storms toward the ring. She isn't smiling. She isn't gesturing. She moves with the cold focus of a predator. A muscular woman, broad-shouldered with jet black hair tied back, slides to the apron. Before anyone can react, she grabs Marlena by the throat and shakes her like a rag doll. Gasps echo through the arena. Jim Ross shouts in disbelief on commentary. Jerry Lawler nearly falls out of his chair. A woman had just physically attacked a man's valet in the middle of a WWE show, something that had never happened before. Her name? Chyna. Billed as the Ninth Wonder of the World, a play on Andre the Giant's Eighth Wonder moniker, she wasn't just a new character. She was an entirely new archetype. In an era when women in WWE were mostly portrayed as eye candy, Chyna looked like she belonged in a different category altogether. She stood in all black, arms folded, her face a mask of stone. She didn't smile, she didn't talk, she didn't need to. WWE in 1997 was full of bright costumes and cartoonish gimmicks, but Chyna didn't wear neon, didn't shout catchphrases, didn't even raise her voice. Her presence was the gimmick. Her silence was louder than any promo. Vince McMahon, watching from commentary, even muttered in shock, "What in the world? Who is that?" From that night forward, fans knew they weren't looking at a valet or a manager. They were looking at something else, something dangerous, something that broke the mold. Chyna wasn't here to smile for cameras or distract referees. She was here to change the rules. Version 2, DX Enforcer. By late 1997, D-Generation X had become the heartbeat of the Attitude Era. Shawn Michaels, cocky and flamboyant. Triple H, arrogant and ruthless. The New Age Outlaws, loud and brash. Together, they were chaos personified, mocking their rivals, invading rival shows, and tearing down the fourth wall every Monday night. But behind all the crotch chops and catchphrases stood Chyna. Silent, stoic, lethal. Whenever DX pulled one of their stunts, Chyna was the insurance policy. Shawn could run his mouth, Hunter could strut around, but fans knew. If anyone dared step up, Chyna would level them. She low-blowed Sergeant. Slaughter in one of the group's most famous moments, dropping the commissioner of WWE to his knees while the crowd howled in laughter. She shoved referees like they were made of paper. She would glare into the camera while the rest of DX cracked jokes, and that glare made every gag feel more dangerous. Without her, DX was a gang of pranksters. With her, they were untouchable. Fans started noticing something else too. She wasn't just standing in the background, she was becoming part of the show's identity. When DX invaded WCW with a tank in 1998, the cameras caught the soldiers, the signs, the chaos. But fans always pointed out the image of Chyna, arms crossed, jaw locked, standing beside the men like an equal. In promos, she never needed the mic. Her stare told the story. And here's what made it special. In an era where women were often slotted into the role of valet or love interest, Chyna was neither. She wasn't eye candy. She wasn't a distraction. She was the muscle. She was the one who made DX feel real. When fans chanted for the group, they weren't just chanting for Shawn and Hunter. They were chanting for Chyna too. Version 3, Breaking the Walls. 1999, The Royal Rumble. The buzzer hits for entrant number 30 and the crowd erupts. For the first time ever, a woman is walking to the ring. Chyna storms down the aisle, black gear, jaw clenched. She doesn't flinch as she steps into the chaos. The other wrestlers pause, stunned. She doesn't hesitate. She goes straight for Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, and dumps him over the top rope. The arena explodes. Chyna, the enforcer who started as Triple H's bodyguard, had just made history. Even though she was eliminated quickly after, the statement was clear. she belonged. Later that year, she qualified for the King of the Ring tournament, another first for a woman. But it didn't stop there. On Raw, she even became the #1 contender for the WWF Championship after defeating Triple H with a little help from Steve Austin. The idea of a woman wrestling for the top title in the company sent shockwaves through fans and media. It never happened, but the moment proved how much faith WWE had in her star power. And then came No Mercy 99, the Good Housekeeping match against Jeff Jarrett. This feud had been heated. Jarrett mocked her, belittled her, cut promos dripping with misogyny. Fans rallied behind her like never before. The match itself was chaos. Guitars, frying pans, vacuums, even a sink. Chyna swung with fury, and when she finally pinned Jarrett, the crowd erupted like the roof had blown off. She wasn't just the first woman to wrestle for the Intercontinental title. She was the first woman to win it. A wall that stood for decades had just crumbled. Version 4, Intercontinental Star. Chyna's Intercontinental reign proved she wasn't a one-night story. She defended the belt against Chris Jericho, and their feud became one of the defining rivalries of her career. At first, fans wondered if Jericho would outclass her. Instead, they went back and forth in brutal matches at Armageddon and the Royal Rumble 2000. At one point, they even co-held the championship, a strange booking decision that somehow added to her mystique. Nobody else in WWE history had shared a men's title like that. And when Hardcore Holly was added into the mix, it became even wilder. But every time Chyna was in the ring, fans were glued to the screen. Her look during this period was iconic. Leather bodysuits, pyroblasts, arms raised high in her trademark pose, and her powerbomb. That was the move that made the crowd gasp every time. Whether it was Jarrett, Jericho, or mid-card challengers, when Chyna lifted a man into the air and slammed him down, fans knew they were watching history. She wasn't just competing in men's matches, she was a champion standing shoulder to shoulder with them. For young fans in the arena, this was the first time they saw a woman treated not as a side act, but as an equal. Version 5, Eddie's Mamacita, 2000. Enter Eddie Guerrero, Latino Heat. The charming, sneaky star with a smile that could sell anything. And somehow, he fell for Chyna. He called her Mamacita, and fans melted. For the first time, Chyna wasn't cold or stoic. She laughed, she smiled, she showed a side of herself fans had never seen. Their on-screen romance was comedy, soap opera, and reality all rolled into one. They dressed up for prom in one famous skit, danced together backstage, and celebrated Eddie's victories like teenagers in love. But the storyline wasn't just comedy, it was layered. Eddie lied, cheated, and stole, and Chyna tried to keep him in check. Their chemistry was so strong that many fans thought it was real. When Eddie finally betrayed her, caught cheating in a shower segment with the Godfather's ladies, the breakup was messy and emotional. Chyna didn't just look hurt, she looked heartbroken. For fans who only knew her as the stoic enforcer, this was a revelation. She could be funny, romantic, and vulnerable. She could make you laugh one week and make you ache the next. Eddie's Mamacita wasn't just a side role, it was proof Chyna could do it all. Version 6, the Playboy Star. That same year, Chyna shocked the wrestling world outside the ring. She appeared on the cover of Playboy. For years, critics mocked her for being too muscular, too different from the women WWE usually pushed. Now, she was everywhere. Magazine covers, talk shows, interviews. She had become mainstream, and WWE leaned in. Her entrances changed. Glitter, rhinestones, and cannons of pyro lit the stage. She strutted like a rock star, not a bodyguard. The controversy was real. Some fans thought she had gone too far from the tough enforcer who terrified men in the ring. Others saw it as the ultimate act of confidence. She had taken control of her image and presented herself how she wanted. In 2001, she did it again. A second Playboy shoot, this time tied directly to her feud with Ivory and the right to censor. Ivory's promos painted Chyna as vulgar and unfit, but Chyna's response was simple. She walked into WrestleMania 17, squashed Ivory in minutes, and posed with the Women's Championship like she owned the world. Version 7, Women's Champion. That WrestleMania squash wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Chyna dominated Ivory so completely that fans sat stunned. The Women's Championship had never been presented like this, one side utterly outclassing the other. And then came Judgment Day, where she faced Lita. The crowd loved Lita, but when Chyna overpowered her, fans knew the truth. There was no one left for her in the division. Here was the problem. Chyna wasn't just a women's wrestler. She was bigger than the belt itself. She had already beaten men, already held the Intercontinental Championship. Putting her back in the women's division felt like trying to cage a lion. After a short reign, she vanished. No promo, no retirement match, just silence. Fans were left asking questions. Why? Where did she go? And why did nobody explain it? For someone who had broken so many barriers, the exit was quiet, almost like WWE wanted fans to forget. Version 8, Life After WWE. Chyna didn't disappear. She went to Japan competing in New Japan Pro Wrestling, a place where women almost never wrestled men. She faced stars like Masahiro Chono and Hiroshi Tanahashi, proving again that she wasn't afraid of any challenge. Japanese fans who respected toughness above all gave her more respect than she had received in her final WWE months. She had crossed another line no woman had crossed before. Back in the US, she appeared on reality shows like The Surreal Life. She tried acting, tried music, even wrote a book. But nothing matched the aura she carried in WWE. Fans who had seen her powerbomb men to the mat now watched her personal struggles play out on tabloid TV. It was painful. She had once looked untouchable. Now she looked vulnerable. And fans couldn't help but wonder how someone who broke so many barriers could be left so far outside the spotlight. Version 9, Forgotten but not erased. For years, WWE barely spoke her name. DX reunions skipped her. Intercontinental title highlight reels ignored her. Fans online grew louder. Why wasn't she in the Hall of Fame? Why wasn't she credited for the walls she broke down? The whispers were ugly. Some said it was because of her adult film work. Others said it was because of how she left WWE. Whatever the reason, the silence was deafening. But fans never forgot. Every time a powerhouse woman entered the Rumble, fans chanted, Chyna. When Beth Phoenix lifted men into the air, when Ronda Rousey stormed through the division, when Rhea Ripley posed with the Women's World Championship, fans drew the same line. All of them carried a piece of Chyna's legacy. She wasn't erased, not really. She lived on in every barrier another woman broke. Version 10, The Legacy. 2019. D-Generation X is inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Shawn, Hunter, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, X-Pac, and finally, Chyna. The crowd rises. They chant her name. For years, fans begged for this moment. Now, at last, her name is called. Too late, maybe, but fitting. She was the first woman in the Royal Rumble, the first woman to qualify for King of the Ring, the first woman to be #1 contender for the WWF Championship, the first woman to hold a men's title, the first woman to wrestle in New Japan at that level, the first woman to pose for Playboy while holding a WWE belt. Every first that women in wrestling take for granted today started with her. Chyna wasn't just a wrestler. She was a trailblazer, a once-in-a-generation figure who made fans rethink what was possible. She wasn't here to smile at the camera or stand behind a man. She was here to break the rules, smash the walls, and change the game. And in the end, that's exactly what she did. The ninth wonder of the world, Chyna.